Chaps, memes and machines live. I will say we are way more organised this week. What a shit show! Live episode number 1.
That was your fault.
And embarrassingly, it was also my fault again for scheduling our diaries not at the event time. So we all show up an hour early. So happy
People
days.
found us though, didn't they? They found us eventually. So yeah, second
yeah,
go.
the
Let's see
event.
if we
It's
can do
just
a
come
better
up
job.
on my notifications right there.
Yeah, there we go.
They cannot escape us.
Sit back, grab a cold beverage from the fridge and relax, because you're now locked in to the sounds of memes and machines.
Look, gents, to kick this thing off, to the bottom right of my screen, we have an OG returning. The Catman, Cathal is back. He's been, who knows where he's been for the last year. This guy, get a message out the blue going, I've been doing dope shit with AI and marketing. Let's chat. And I was like, when the Catman speaks, I listen. So welcome back, Catty. Fill us in what's been happening the last 12 months, and then we'll dive into some topics.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Yeah, I feel like the world is changing. I feel like it's been an exciting 12 months. I think last time we were doing this regularly, kind of said to myself, man, I'm doing a lot of things right now. I'm trying to grow Instagram communities. I'm trying to build a startup. I'm trying to do a podcast. And I think sometimes you got to realize, like, where can I put my focus, and like, how do I play out, where success really comes from? And so, been working on a few things, been building a few things. I think I knew there'd be a moment where I was like, man, I need to speak to all. There's a lot to chat about, and there's a lot of exciting things to share. Obviously, been listening to you guys every week, and you guys have obviously been, talking a lot about it. But I don't think there's a better time right now to be a creative person, or be in marketing if you're on top of this stuff. I don't think there's ever been so much at our fingertips. And I was just keen to hear from you guys as well, what the perspectives have been. What are you seeing in the market? I think I operate in a very kind of niche corner of tech, and sometimes you get a bit stuck in your bubble. So I was excited to chat and share what I've been learning on, share what I've been working on, but also hear what you guys have been working on.
Yeah, good man. No, I appreciate you, and I think you'll have some real knowledge bombs. Look, let's dive into it. A phrase has hit our feeds over and over again for about 2 or 3 weeks now. Vibe marketing, built off the back of vibe coding. You feel it, you create it, energy. Catman, give us a couple of headlines, your take, what's happening, why is it interesting to you?
I think this kind of idea of vibe coding is interesting because people have been using AI to code stuff for the last 2 years, maybe. People have been using AI to write copy, to create images, but then somebody decided to put the word vibe in front of coding, and suddenly it gave this like package to this, I guess, method of movement we'd all been talking about. But this isn't new. I think now it just has like a cool, fun, memorable name. So an incredible piece of branding there. I think it was one guy who tweeted it. Just tweeted, I've been vibe coding this week. And the next thing you know, it's like, okay, that's how we're going to refer to this thing, which is fun. But I believe it's like, it's just the fundamentally different idea that execution now is table stakes, right? So it's less about how I build something, how I execute something, and more about what is the idea? Can I come up with a great, unique idea? And B, what is my distribution? Can I have a unique edge in getting it in front of people and distributing it? And it's basically a fundamental shift where 5-10 years ago, it was really about, can I find the best engineer? Can I find the best technical minds to build my thing? Whereas today, it's less about that and more about, do I have an edge elsewhere? Which I think is now in ideation, but also in taste. Do I have an edge over other people on like how something should be presented? What are my references, right? Because AI is just, and using AI is often about like pulling in different references, whether that's visually or even like technically. And it's a great time to be an ideas person, because the ability to execute is now not limited to, again, spending a bunch of money on engineers or having to hire a technical team. you can get an MVP out yourself, and I think that's super exciting. But it does fundamentally change the way that we work.
Yeah, I love that, and I suppose the only counter argument, you're preaching to the converted. I echo that same sentiment. I've been in Athens this week, and my whole talk is about why now is the moment for creatives, why right brains will rule the world. We've removed friction, technical barriers, executional barriers. You can dream it, imagine it, you can create it. The only counter argument is, do we see this just world where you have endless reams of shit software and endless reams of shit content, and just everything becomes completely commoditized? For great creatives, that's a win, in the sense that it's probably easier to have a point of difference, maybe. But that's my only one sentiment. If you talk about the what do they call it, like the shadow, when something great happens, there's usually a counterbalance, or with anything in life, there's always a shadow. And the shadow, in my sense, is, do we can we see the good stuff for all the mediocre that exists in the world now? Like, that's
Slop.
maybe an argument.
Yeah, I think slop is the word that people keep using to, I think, describe this, where there's just going to be this like mass volume of low quality content. But I think that's a fairly simplified view. It's like saying, when we invented the camera, a lot of bad photographs were taken. Well, yes, but what it did was unlock the great photographers and the great artists to create more. And I think we're going to see the same. Interestingly, there was this recent study the last couple of weeks where somebody presented, I think, 2,000 people with AI poetry versus human poetry, and they asked them to identify which poetry was written by a human and which was written by AI. And they identified the AI written poetry as more human-like than the human written one. So they couldn't actually distinguish, and they actually preferred the AI written poetry. And so it's one of these interesting moments where, it is getting to the stage where the distinction now is so minimal. I'd say the caveat there is that, like, there are just different art forms that the human context is more important, right? So, like, if I'm listening to like an acoustic guitarist sing, like, his human experience is really, really important to that art form, and so it does elevate it. Whereas, like, if I listen to like a techno DJ, it's a bit more mechanical. It's a bit more like, basically made by technology anyway, and so that human element is maybe less important. So I think what's actually going to change is that, there are certain art forms that the human experience is just far more important. But others where I think people just don't care. And so if you think about, like, I don't know, UI design, like, do you care when you use your piece of software that a human designed that flow, right? But if you go to a cinema and you watch an art house film, you do care that a human wrote that, produced that, and there was this kind of human element. So I don't know, I think there's going to have to be different contexts the way that we consume things now.
Yeah, love that. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've changed my thoughts a lot, honestly, because my co-host on my other podcast, Andrew, he always says, look, if you don't tell people it's AI made, as he says, it's just going to be like, do they enjoy it or not? The ultimate thing is, like, you're giving them something and they don't think about the ramifications of who made it and how it was made and things like this. But at the same time, I think, humans will always be best at telling human stories to other humans. And so even if you use AI to do that, like, a human in the loop always will make it better, resonating with us. And that's the ultimate thing is, AI, very good at mimicking the way we write. Why? Because it next word prediction of the whole internet, which is our writing. It's like, it's good at mimicking humans, like, writing and making the next word. But what it's not so good at the moment is making new and novel things. It takes a human-based skilled person to prompt something new and novel from it. But agentic things, Ollie, is up your alley. That's what's coming next. Like, there's going to be the next wave and phase, and as Max always says, my other co-host, this is the worst AI is ever going to be, so the current, like, already fooling people with poetry, and, that's already the threshold. It's kind of like the Turing test for it. That's one off the list, and there's many more to come. I personally think, going back to the slop stuff, though, I think all social media will start to label AI content and sort of dampen its reach if there is just so much proliferated into the platforms. And I think new social media will rise where AI is not dampened and It's going to be like an opt-in thing. It's going to be new platforms will arise, new communities will arise. Yesterday, I was on a website called escape.ai, which is like a Netflix version of AI content only. It's an entire cinema experience website. It's incredible. It's a theater. It has an award show. It's got virtual production. It's amazing. It feels like the new wave of things as a platform for the new media. So it's like you're either into that or you're not, like you're going to go there and know that's AI consumed content fully, or you're not. And you're going to be an Instagram where you'll see every fourth post might be AI or something like this. But yeah, they're just my general thoughts on it.
Yeah, just building on something you said there around, agentic. There was a book in the early 90s by Margaret Bowden. It's quite a famous book that distilled creativity into mechanisms. And there were 3 elements. There was combinational. I have one idea here. I have another idea. I combine them to create something new. That's primarily how all of us create. We see something, we're inspired, we create new. The next is kind of perspective based. I take something but show it from a new perspective, a new direction, a new channel. That's a form of. And then the third one is transformational, which another word for transformational is originality. And to your point, that's the bit where right now in a linear sense, either from single prompting, chain of thought, it's very difficult to have original thought because we get the median of human intelligence without kind of hijacking the algorithm or hijacking the language model to create something better. What's really interesting though in agentic is, and why it's probably more pertinent in creative, everyone talks about agentic in like accounting and operations. It's more important in creative because great creative work is usually the byproduct of teamwork. Like we can all relate to that amazing campaign. The best piece of work that probably all of us have done is very seldomly done in isolation. It's usually in a marketing capacity. It's like the strategists that found that unique insight that then inspired the creative director to do their thing and concept an amazing idea. Then an art director comes in and brings that to life. And then you have a planner say it should live here. And effectively what agentic AI does is take artificial intelligence trained in a very specific way with a very specific knowledge base and combines them to emulate team dynamics in not only a passive way, but a proactive way, an active way. So, you look at those and go, actually, this agentic era, maybe we can start to edge into creating original works with AI or transformational, in other words. So, look, I'm a big believer that the one thing that doesn't change in this whole equation is like people. We all want the same stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like we all want to be entertained. We all want to learn. We all want to learn. We want to show off, whatever that is.
A very recent example, someone even put it in the chat, like, turning people into LinkedIn Toys R Us dolls. Like, we started this action figure trend, right? And it took millions of people making their own versions of themselves because they're all so egotistical that the first thing they could think of creatively was let me put me inside of the action
By
figure.
the way, Catty, Chris created the original, the action figure trend. Chris did that, and he was like, he did all of us, and then I've seen it everywhere, and I saw people selling courses.
There's like millions of people have done.
People have built apps for it. I keep getting TikTok.
I know.
Every time I go on the app,
send me the app. Send me the app link. I'm
have,
interested to see.
They've obviously just put a prompt in, and
the thing that was misunderstood about my original action figure was that it was a ChatGPT prompt. It's actually not. I'm using like 4 or 5 different AI platforms for like likeness of face transfer and other little things. So like that was the misunderstood thing. And then I think some guy wrote like a prompt that pretended it could reconstruct it, but actually it looked really generic and all of these things. But the reason I'm saying this story is not because I'm proud of it in any way. I think it's kind of crazy how wild it's gone. I didn't start with putting me in a box. I started putting my prospects in a box, and I started putting people I wanted to talk to in a box. It wasn't like let me put me in a box type thing, but that's the thing that took off. And actually we had a guy reply recently with like a WWF awareness campaign where he put animals without themselves in a box. So it's like the plastic outline of where the animal should be, and it's an endangered species awareness campaign. And I was like, dude, that's absolutely brilliant. You took the baton, you took it on, you had a human idea, you made awareness for a charity. That's exactly what I want. You know, I wish that there were many more examples of that instead of the millions of people that put themselves in action figure boxes. Like, take the baton and do something else creative with it, with your own human intuition.
You know what that says about humanity? We're all vain egomaniacs that live in our own heads.
I know.
And celebrate us.
I think
Tom
people
laughed at this as well. You know, I've been saying to everyone, like, can you, I keep sharing in WhatsApp. I'm like, oh my God, Aldi's posted one. Oh my God, M&S Co-op. Oh my God, all these people, right? And I'm like, every single one of them is doing their own stuff and doing it generic and just hopping on exactly the same trend. No one's thinking outside the box, ironically. You know, ironically, they're not taking this baton and taking it further. And then I've seen like a dozen examples out of the millions that have been made. And so this is my basic point here, right? ChatGPT 4.0 unlocked a new wave. 1 million people in 1 hour they signed. That's, you know, the previous record was their own. 5 days, they got 1 million users. They did it in 1 hour. 1 hour, they onboarded that many people just for image generation. And given all that power, given all that stuff, not many people are using that creatively. I'm kind of disappointed, to be honest. You know, on the whole, like, I was wishing that instead of Studio Ghibli filters and action figure copy prompts, you know, take it further, guys. Come on. Like, we need to show our human-based creativity. The agentic era is coming. We need to be better than this with these tools. We need to be.
I do, but I believe that, like, actually the really creative people who could use this stuff for brilliance are just not looking at it because it's this, like, you know, existential threat that they have to stare down when they do. You know,
yeah.
Some of the best designers I work with, when I speak to them about this, they don't know it exists. They don't want to use it. They don't want to touch it. And I'm like, no,
certainly the ones at the bigger companies, Catty, you're right. Like, I trained big agencies, big companies, and because of the fear of like training in like important details, they are actually banned from it. So they have to pursue it in their own time only, you know. I remember early days, like, and I'm not going to say any agency specifically, but top 10 UK agencies, speaking to the top leading art directors. And I'm like, have you used Midjourney yet? Have you used Midjourney yet? Have you done this?
Get off the fence.
I can't.
Come on, Chris. Name names.
I'm under literal NDA. We signed NDAs because we ended up teaching them. You know, otherwise I would name them and shame them. But like, they're now upskilled, but they were so late to the party. It was crazy. And I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be at a top 10 agency. Yet I know an SME down the road from me that's tried Midjourney earlier than you. This is absolutely bizarre, you know, but it actually goes on with a trend. Like, enterprise is slow to pivot. They are. They just, any new things, enterprise is so big. Their systems are so complex. You know, it's very hard to introduce new things to these massive beasts. So it's like, actually smaller are more agile and have more pivot. And so they can be more advanced than AI. Plus, if they do something wrong, they don't lose billions. That's the thing. You know, imagine one AI use case where they get a massive backlash, and like Apple, they lose 5% of their stock.
It's the cost. It's the cost. We talk about this a lot. Ben, what are some of your observations, matey? You're probably, you know, the most, well, you are a content creator. I was going to say the most content creator.
I sit on Threads is quite an interesting place because I think it's the one platform where there's a lot of talk about AI. X is AI, in my opinion, is very AI first. Threads is a mixture of artists and AI. And the artists, the problem is, I spoke to a few of them, and the issue is that if you're an quote unquote artist and you're in a community of artists, your friends are artists. If you then start using AI, you're gonna get this, you know, what the fuck are you doing? You know, like, and I think that is the problem that I think a lot of artists have got, in that they are super talented, but they feel like they cannot make that jump because of being judged by their peers. How could you do this to the art community? I'm like, oh, shut up. Like, but I get it. And I think if you go onto Threads, there are people arguing all day long. I tend not to comment because I don't want it to suck energy out of me by me battling somebody who has equally valid points as me. And it's a great debate, but we're doing it 2 hours because we're going back and forth. So I'm just observing everything. I think the problem is that I read someone, like occasionally people come with very intelligent points, and someone basically distilled it simply down to, like, if you look art as on a, you know, a time period, it's got easier to create as technology has evolved and the tools have come. And what's happened is we've now jumped. We've gone from, I guess, technology and computers, Photoshop software was a big leap. And now we've got a huge leap where essentially all someone needs is fingers to generate art. And they don't really have to, like, go through a long period of skill development to generate something. But the issue that I have is people are just going, all these artists, it requires no skill. Okay, if it requires no skill, why is there a huge gap between AI slop and top tier AI? How is there a gap if it requires no skill? There's complete bollocks. They don't know what they're talking about because they haven't.
Let me just pause for an applause break there, Ben.
Yeah, but it's true. Like the stuff that you create there, Chris, and like the stuff where we're saying when you're talking around with the characters, etc.
Exactly, mate.
WWF created something really innovative, used ideas, creativity, skill, and you've got people just generating stuff and put it in Slack. What is the difference there between, like, to me that's skill, it's experience, it's taste, like Catty said, it's like, I think a lot of people have got a very narrow perspective because they are attached to this idea that it's stolen, it's coming from data sets, like, and but okay, so what happens when people start building data sets that is all legal and is all sort of like, I believe like Adobe have started doing that, like, and is it now allowed or not? Because now they haven't, I say they, but the artists have now not got that argument, because that is the one that they keep going towards, and I mean that's completely fair. But I'll also say I have this like way. I think okay, if we're gonna play the ethics game, right? Like, how many products and services do you use where you don't check whether it was ethically made? How many services do you use are made in another country in slave labor? Your phones that you use in your hand are made in Chinese factories where they work 23 hours a day. But does that bother you? Oh no, it doesn't. It doesn't, because that creates efficiency and convenience in your life. Do you go to the shop and do you buy the supermarket meat that's organic, that's more expensive, or do you buy the cheap shit? Oh, okay. And I rest my case in that. People are quite happy to turn a blind eye and put stuff under the carpet when it positively affects them. But as soon as it negatives, oh no, ethics, and you can't do that. And so,
shall I throw some fuel on the fire? I read an article this morning that said apparently there were twice as many Make America Great hats made in China sold than the actual ones made in America, because it was $80 for the American-made one and $30 for the Chinese-made one.
Poetic.
And then you're like, it's the irony, isn't it? Like you say, Ben, there's actually been some very good political satire made with AI about the irony of it all. The Door Brothers are amazing. I'll bring up, if you guys want to, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, we could load it in the background whilst we discuss other things and then close out the show by watching one of these like things.
The last one there, 2025, was phenomenal. We'll throw that in at the end.
They're so good. But the thing I want to say about AI is there's now lots more content that doesn't need to get greenlit by people with money. Ideas that got abandoned on the creative table because clients couldn't monetize it or they didn't find it was a good idea. Like, now these things can be made. And like, that's really exciting for me.
It's a good thing. It's like it's segueing to like vibe coding, that idea that
exactly,
you can now
that's
build
the whole idea of vibe marketing. Is like something that
things that were previously unattainable, you can now make them attainable, because you don't have to do 4 weeks of development and the cost and resource. So it gets interesting. I just want to kind of go from, we've kind of taught macro ethics, like general direction. Catty, you have been at the forefront of marketing since you were like 16. You've been building meme pages forever, communities forever. You've transitioned the last few years into building on and promoting kind of company at the forefront of tech. Give me your views on like some of the interesting user cases from a marketeer's perspective, how you're thinking about using image generation, image to video, automations, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think actually that one of the big shifts of the last few months has been, I remember when we first spoke about this, we were probably doing this podcast when AI really started to catch fire. And I think we always said that like creativity is the one thing that's protected, like the idea generation phase. I actually feel a bit differently about that now, where since the best models like Claude 3.7 and ChatGPTs as well, since they've had access to internet search, I've felt their ability to actually ideate from scratch is now in a very, very good place, which means that, if you think about like a great idea is just connecting a bunch of ideas or connecting a bunch of dots. I'm now regularly using these models to actually ideate the campaigns that I need, or ideate like a piece of content in a way that it wasn't able to do before, mostly because it was trained on data only available like a year ago or so. And so I think people now need to get really aggressive with just using these tools to literally be like a creative companion that sits there and throws ideas at you. The things that we're building internally at Third Web, and the kind of my vision for the future of the way AI will help creative and marketing teams, the end state I want to get to, which is going to take some time, is basically to have some kind of agent or some kind of AI tool listening into every single meeting, Slack conversation, internal discussion that we have, and then constantly using that to feed and create content for us. I work every day with engineers, technical people, and they are, they have brilliant minds, they have amazing opinions, amazing concepts. They don't want to write, they don't want to create content. It's not interesting to them. They don't really know how. And so a lot of my time is spent, how do I use AI to extract the brilliant thoughts, opinions that they're having, and constantly then turn that into blogs, turn that into video scripts, etc. And so, a few things we built, for example, we have a Slack bot now that if there's like a great discussion happening in Slack, we can tag this bot in and it will take the discussion, feed that through to Claude. We have this prompt ready, and then it will write a blog and spit that back to us. And so you think that that's really nice for internal discussions. It's also really nice for like customer troubleshooting, right? So like a customer comes to us with a problem they're having, we fix it, we then take that transcript and create a written guide over it. So it's like this idea that we can now just have content running on autopilot, which we're constantly feeding through to SEO.
Have you ever tried the Notebook LLM to turn it into a podcast yet?
No, which one's that?
Oh man, so like a recent thing I started doing, very similar to the Slackbot idea, summarizing of conversations, but imagine that you were like, so at the moment we're aggregating like AI news, and a lot of it's white papers, and there's 70 pages, and I obviously don't want to sit and read all that. Plus I'm not a technical person to even do that. So what I do is I like feed that into like Claude, and then ask it to summarize it in the form of 2 podcast guests. And then I get a script written that I then send to Notebook LLM that then literally reads it to me. And it's absolutely genius, entertaining, so much more funny, interesting. You can even say like, make it sarcastic. You can literally steer the type of conversation and podcast you want to hear. It's super smart, and it's like chunkable insights from stuff that we've been always missing out on. I've been saying that for years. Like,
so when does that replace this podcast is the real question.
Honestly, those podcasts are super entertaining, and this medium is in serious trouble. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think AI podcasts are really interesting.
I'm indoor. It's 5:30 in Athens right now. I could be out having Greek food, salad, and if I could get AI to replace me right now, I'd be all in. Look, as you were saying that, gents, it's something I've long believed about creative, but it's reaffirming that to me. When people think of creativity, they usually think of 2 things: the concept, the idea, and then the production. How it's made, how it's looked, the visuals, etc. When social media came along, great creatives in the modern age thought about distribution. They had distribution in mind, where it's going to live in this kind of fragmented ecosystem that we now find ourselves in, where content isn't linear, it exists in an ecosystem. You go now to where we are with technology and creative converging. And my belief is that now you have this 4th paradigm where we're thinking about mechanics, operations, we're thinking about delivery, we're thinking about like personalization. So it's not only concept, it's not only production, it's not only distribution, now it's technology, the 4th pillar of like, how are we then bringing that to life? And it's like, to your starting position, Catty, it's like, honestly, I don't think there's a more exciting time for creatives to exist in the world and create economic value As in, like, you can be super bright, young person that is just obsessed with tech. You might not have the experience, which is always a disadvantage, but what you have now is maybe so much more valuable. Just the resources.
You just have to lean in.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I wanted to also I want to build something similar to what you said, Catty, but I call it just like an always on agent. Like I want like a voice like that's just like an Alexa, but just on my laptop, where basically I've like thought of an idea or I'm like, oh, I want to turn this into TikTok video, go write a script for me, and then it goes through the funnel and puts it in my Notion page or wherever I do that, or like just something that is because like if I'm at home and I'm just sort of like thinking about something and I just want to just be able to just discuss what I'm thinking out loud, and then it just starts chiming in. Oh, you should think about this, or like, and I know you can do that with ChatGPT, but it requires steps. I have to go to ChatGPT, open it up, dialogue, and then in and out, and it's just habit building, honestly. Like until we get to a point where you can literally have something listening for the whole time and just interjecting at certain points to then add more information or more questions, and then going, oh yeah, that's great, can you like write that up later and actually just remind me in 2 days time, and we're going to spend an hour on looking at it together. And I also want you to go and do some deep research on that as well, so you can bring locks to the table, and we're going to have a meeting out on Tuesday and we're going to then solve that together. So it's like having another person, literally. But then you can just get them to go and do the deep research and bring everything you need to the table, and you can have just simultaneous projects running everywhere. Like, and it's the people like you, Catty said, who lean into it, like, and get ahead and start building these that will have an unfair advantage. They'll be easier to set up in the future. It will be a lot easier where people build solutions to this. But I think that's going to take a little bit.
What's your form factor, Ben? You know, when you have your Jasper, because you're describing Jasper from Iron Man, you know, like when you have that, is it Ray-Ban sunglasses? Is it a watch? Is it software level at your computer? Is it where is your agent? Where do you want it?
Probably like either phone or computer, where I sit, everywhere.
Because the phone is ChatGPT right now.
My
but
watch,
you're sounding like
phone.
You're more like you want a software level one, which is, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I'm probably going to clone my desktop and then have it, you know, give agents permission to access all the things I want it to, and then keep personal like photos of my son and other things from being in the training data set. Like, I'm already sort of setting up my desktop ready for the agentic era. You know, I'm kind of ready to give it all software level access to all of my apps, and like, you know, that's the next stage. So
yeah, that's what I want. I want a personal.
That is the next stage. Yeah,
I want a personal assistant that I can access by voice in a second, and it also has access to everything that I have everywhere. And so if I ask it to do something, and it requires it to do things in multiple software, it can just do that, and it just does it.
And how much complicence do you want? You know, do you want to approve it? Like, let's say it booked flights for you. Would you want to literally?
No. Everything will be done with me final approval, just like in
right. So just keep flashing up notifications to you. Approve. I've done this. Approved. I've done this. Approved.
No, nothing goes live on nothing leaves the ecosystem of me until I approve it. Like, so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you'll just get notifications from it constantly all day round. Like, I've just done this. I've just done that. Like, is it to your satisfaction? You approve, or that's what's going to happen.
We don't have notifications for everything. It's just stuff depending on the urgency, the priority, and etc.
This is actually a really interesting segue into kind of vibe coding, because like one of the criticisms of vibe coding is like security concerns, things that are seemingly obvious. You know, AI's kind of thrown a spanner into our preconceptions. Now we have computers that speak in natural language, in the sense that things that like seem really hard, it actually finds easy. Things that should be easy, it finds hard, like getting text right. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this really interesting dynamic where it's kind of really challenging what we thought computers should be good at, all the preconceptions. And then I think about like what you're describing here of your own applications, augmenting your life with technology, sorting stuff out. And there was an interesting, and I should remember the name, but there was an interesting demo I saw where it's actually reinventing how we think about UX. So think of your Zappiers and your Makes. They basically are plumbing for software.
Yeah.
And people are getting creative on how they plumb together to solve unique problems, edge cases, etc. What this application does, and I need to find it, basically, it's an operator and you screen record what you do. It learns what you're doing
Oh,
and then it will do it for you. And I go, that's a genius way to document, because
Tango.
everybody has a slightly, it wasn't Tango, it was like Kairos or Kyra or and like demos can be misleading. We all know the fucking facade of some demos, right? It might be shit. But what I actually saw was here's my accounting procedure of sending invoices. Here's what I do, and then I document it here. You basically screen record, and I go, that's a really inventive way to think about user experience. Watch what I do, but it's emulating people. Watch what I do and do this for me. The next reiteration of that is you build an application, not just the workflow. There's an application that is like completely bespoke to your needs. And it probably bridges that gap you're describing, Ben. Because even what you're saying there, Ben, there is quite a big technological leap to get there.
Yeah.
I think what Ben's describing, though, is the difference between yours and what he wants is yours could be automated. You know, if you just wanted to screen record and emulate an exact workflow, like a normal automation could do that. Like make.com, as for example. But Ben's is an agentic thing. You know, he wants it to holistically be preloaded with a lot of his knowledge and, you know, be doing
it has memory,
context.
It's just building that is just not easy. And honestly, like, we're in a time now where, for the people in the AI bubble, we realize that in order to get to a point where we build sort of a stuff that's agentic, there's a lot of work to do, and it's a big shift of change in behavior as well. It's a big shift in the way that you work. It's just, like I said, it's just habit building. It's like, okay, building my own data. I've got to now build a data set of my life and my thoughts and the way that I do things. Like, nobody's ever done that before. You know, I got to go YouTube, scrape all my videos. Okay, but I don't make YouTube videos. So how do I find, like, I've got my emails. I can now get it to write my emails, but how do I get it to know what I think? How do I build the data set of the way I see stuff? And that's what now people have got to start thinking about in order to get ahead.
ChatGPT update. That's the
the Google Drive update. Exactly. The Google Drive integration.
But it's like yes, but it's
a first step. It's a first step in memory and understanding.
It's not rich enough. I think it depends on how people use it, I guess.
You know what there should be? There should be you know how if like people saw your internet search history, and I'm specifically looking at you, Chris, you'd get arrested. No, I'm just the general idea of like, there's something scary about AI knowing your deepest insecurities because of your search history. The thing you say behind closed doors that you're willing to like acknowledge to yourself but no one else. It's actually, I imagine we can learn so much about humanity now if we had access to ChatGPT's data.
Totally.
I think
that's literally how I said about taking my son's photos out as well. You know, he's only 1 year old. I do not want him trained in his face. The fact that it's my son, you know, lots of the stuff, like, because think about it, guys, like all these platforms, HubSpot just announced an AI agent. What's it for? To collect more data. What's that for? To sell more products. You know, essentially this is the ultimate Google Analytics pixel that's for retargeting data. Because like you said, Ollie, you say to an LLM far more than you say to a search engine, and you say to it exactly what you're looking for. You know, because you know it will reply back. Like, think about how you Google search. You do like rough things so that you end up in like a forum, or you change the exact way you type, and because you know the top 3 will be ads, and all of the experience, like you said, the UX is like, we know Google. It's even called Google it, but I don't use Google for very exact match things. I use LLMs. So that data is worth 10 times more to retarget me through ads. And Perplexity just introduced native ads. So now they're using this data to retarget their users inside the AI, and it's the first form of, I called it the golden era in the non-AI advertising era, because we've all been given this non-advertising experience, but it's coming. It's coming to all of them, I would say.
Capitalism overrides everything, by the way.
You know, sorry, I just want to chime in. You know, the ChatGPT memory update?
Yeah.
I don't really know the entirety of it, but so I've got an idea. This is what I want to do. So I want to build the training. I want to train the model on this, right? I'm thinking every day I tell ChatGPT that this is my intention, and every day we're going to spend an hour you're going to ask me questions about everything.
That would be
how I
very
make decisions. And we're going to do this every morning at 9 o'clock, and that's what I assume that it would have too much data. Like it would. How big is the context window here? But like that's
I'd
what
say
I'm
your biggest consideration here, Ben, is ChatGPT and OpenAI the ones you want to put all your eggs into? Because there will be many LLMs that can offer this, and that it might not cost so much. Even that you can localize your computer so that you know the cloud information's not going away, and like that. I don't think I'm ever going to trust a private, non-open source agent with all my information. Never.
Yeah, of course. If they want to fucking. Yeah, like it's a bad idea, of course. Like in terms
because wherever you put your eggs in that basket.
This guy's got it encrypted. Laptop explodes. Laptop explodes. They're gonna run in. Catman, what are your thoughts?
I think it's I love all this discussion, but I do think it's interesting that we have seen that people really don't care about privacy as much as we thought they did. I think that's like the one takeaway I have, where everyone in my team, we have this app called Granola, which you may use, which is like a meeting note taker, but it's locally installed on our desktops because we have calls across like our internal like Slack, we have meetings on Google Hangout, we have meetings on Zoom, and this just records everything locally on the device and then gives us meeting notes. Like the whole team has this, and that's fine. And like, I even like, you think about social media, right? Like Cambridge Analytica happened, but everybody still uses Instagram every week. Like we really don't care that much about our data and the efficiency that we get from these tools. I think that humanity has decided that the trade-off is worth it. And I think people like, we're a bit more tech forward. We're early adopters to this stuff. So I think we're thinking more about it. But I think the average person won't think twice about putting their child's face on these tools, putting their deepest, darkest secrets to these tools. And who knows what the outcomes will be. But I think there's one thing I've learned through this AI wave is that, like Ol said, you can't stop innovation. You can't stop capitalism. It's just going to drive forward despite the privacy concerns. And actually, to your point, I'm a big believer that, OpenAI might just become the everything app for a lot of this stuff. Like, I think the image model was the turning point for me, where I really realized that, okay, these guys can probably do everything and do it fastest. And there might just be one winner in all of this race, and it might just be one app that we go to. And I feel bad for a lot of the people.
Google's making this last minute run right now, and I'm like, wow, they've gone from non-existent last year to best in 6 categories, including the image one. Theirs is actually still
best
better.
There's technical best, and there's best in the eyes of the public.
No, I would say that
and distribution. The distribution is better, right? So like, and I think about Apple all the time, where we talk about all these models. Like the day that Apple puts the AI button on the iPhone.
Dude, the Apple intelligence is terrible. It's terrible. Exactly. What's going on?
One day it might not be. They don't have to be best first. They just have to be best at some point.
Apple isn't often best first. You're right. They wait and then they're the best. Yeah.
Exactly. Me and my friends were chatting this morning about Apple going how like they've dropped the ball, and they're just a phone company now. But like the idea is of the height of AI, and they have these like shitty little avatar things. Like,
do you not just think that they're just cooking in the background like Google were? Like
I think so.
Of course,
you can't like they're.
I have to. I hope. I love. I have to hope.
Like I just don't know what they're cooking, but it's the same as Google. I just think that they just wanted to wait a bit, wanted to make sure that they were building stuff that was like actually good.
Yeah,
and useful.
They've always had that edge case of Apple are never first. They're always like on time. That's been my philosophy with Apple. However, they have shown many. I'm gonna say, probably they've shown that they are missing innovation curves. They fucked around with the car for ages. They never update Siri. Like Apple can buy their way to success. Like undoubtedly, they have every advantage. They have such a big moat that they can, like Microsoft and Apple have such big moats in their domains that they can actually they can fuck up a lot, surprising amount, and miss so many things and still win, and like take everything. However, AI is like one of those leaps forward where you go in the same way, take the media landscape. You went, what was ever going to displace TV? And then social media comes along in a way. It's like, would have been unthinkable, this idea that your attention could be taken away from TV. And now you go, well, it seems obvious in retrospect. So I look at these factors and go, you've got a CEO that is effectively an amazing operator and delivery, but he's not a founder. He's not Jobs. He's not the visionary. He's not going to catch the right wave. He definitely runs a better business probably, but like Apple aren't what we probably romanticize and have done for years. And then maybe they never will be. And like now is this wild time for your, these 3 to 30 person startups that are just eating everybody's lunch. It's
at least until they catch up. I mean, like, I wonder, Catty, if you're right. I think distribution matters so much. If you own software or hardware, like I've been on Apple devices since I was in music college when I was 14. So I've never had a Windows.
You're not gonna leave it.
Yeah. So, like, if Apple introduced anything like that, like Logic Pro is an Apple-only, like, DAW workstation. If they had their own version of an AI like that, I'd be all over it. So you're right. Like, and Microsoft Word is the same. Everyone got distributed Word. Why? Not because it's good, because it's free. So, like, billions of people use Word, and if that has like an LLM in it, it will get used
Microsoft own enterprise, Google own enterprise, so
exactly,
like they have advantages. And just on the distribution, sorry, Catty, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like I think about it like in terms of the people building startups as well. Like, I don't think it's a good place to be in if you're building. I know a lot of people building like email AI, things like that, and you just think that it's like email AI or even like any tool that I think there's another company like Google, like OpenAI with this massive distribution, they could just wipe you out with one great feature.
Yeah,
and so it's almost like this.
It's what they're doing, is what's happening. Like,
and most of them are just wrappers of that anyway. It's just a ChatGPT wrapper email marketing tool. So even if they updated, like, then they're screwed. Or if the service goes down, it's like completely beholden to the foundational model or whatever it's called.
I would argue, though, as someone that studies a lot of business and success stories, there would be no innovation if you waited for incumbents to because they've, for a long time, technology companies could wipe out, emerging startups. Like at any point, Calendly could have been wiped out by Google properly. Linktree could have been destroyed by Instagram. There's a number of cases where large companies were created because a business, an incumbent, or a platform decided not to introduce a feature. Interestingly enough, one of our businesses that we've incubated, we prototyped, and we're now doing a sort of external fundraise for. We go through a kind of crib sheet of questions investors may ask. And one of the big questions around this particular product is how defendable is the tech? Because it's a very competitive space. And my view on this is, give it 2 years, no technology is defendable. So you go, okay, what is defendable? We all can agree distribution is definitely, and distribution means one of two things. It can mean like corporate distribution, or it can mean like audience, following, media, however you want to frame that. The next thing that defines you and will give you advantages is brand, people's perception of you, your marketing efforts. But there are other non-obvious things that I think product teams don't think enough about. Like for me, social graphs. If me and my friends all use one app, that to me is a defendability factor, because it's my personal connections all using the same thing. So social graphs and geography start to matter. And then the fourth paradigm is like, if you're building products, and you have a domain expertise, use that domain expertise. Or like if they're heavily regulated, building products around complex regulation is also interesting, because again, the barrier to enter is really high. We're all saying the barrier to create technology is now low and is only getting lower. Well, you have to now think about all the other things, which is basically behavioral science, how people behave, how we market, how we grow. And I think I signal it's a really interesting time for marketeers to be entrepreneurs. That's like what co-created is. It's like, I believe creative industry and marketeers are going to be the best entrepreneurs in the future. We went from financiers, the era of like people who knew money and capital. they won the world. Then you had operators as logistics got complicated. And now I'm like, marketeers and creatives are going to run the world.
Yeah.
I'm
Because we
biased as fuck,
shifted
but
from
that's my prediction.
execution to ideation. That's exactly what's happened. You know, the executors of this world, the practitioners, are going to be less important because of the ideators of the LLMs, you know, like, so you said it earlier, like, and I think this is so important, to get an MVP, you know, to get a minimal viable product doesn't require you talking any language of computers anymore. That's the fundamental shift. You know, like, in order to start a software company, you had to hire a developer. They had to do PHP. They had to do whatever coding language it was. They talked to computers. Therefore, they were very expensive. And therefore, you know, you didn't translate your idea perfectly to them. And there was lots of limitations. But now, as a business owner and a marketeer, as you say, Ollie, you can go, right, well, let me go to Claude, get an MVP type, you know, thing. Or maybe you go to something like even more powerful if you're a bit more familiar with AI, and you go, someone put it into the chat earlier, I think it was my mate Tom, he said, like, people are using Cursor, you know, Cursor's the greatest, like, coding LLM. If you really know what you're doing, then that will get you a much more viable MVP, and you could maybe launch to get 1,000 customers without any technical person in the loop. But I will say this, I definitely want to, you know, I don't want to put the fire out on vibe coding and vibe marketing, but if you're making an app, you can't just bootstrap this because what's going to happen is people that are savvy developers are going to hack you. They're going to, like, target you and your lack of dev skills and hack your app. It's happening all over X right now. Like, people are going, bro, I vibe coded my way to 1 million users, and then Russian troll goes, oh, great, I'll come and pwn your app then.
It's
Good.
there's more to technology, there's more to product, there's more to business, there's more to marketing than, like, the naive surface level stuff. Catty, I just want to kind of segue into, like, your thoughts on stuff you're building, because you've been playing around with vibe coding for some of your things you're involved with. What are, like, interesting user cases that you're, I suppose, stumbling into?
Yeah, I think I spoke about it earlier. Like, I started off just building Slack bots because I think that's, like, the easiest. Like, I think, like Chris said, there is actually a ceiling where there's stuff that actually vibe coding is not great for, because you do need, like, a bit of technical understanding. I don't think this is going to last. I think in the future everything is going to come down. But right now there's, like, some simple workflows, like I mentioned. I think the image generation piece is super compelling, where there's a few, like, really great, you know, so I, like, side projects I'm working on in the fashion space is, I found, like, so for people, if you're, like, a fashion designer, right, and you need to send, like, clothing to a manufacturer, one of the most important pieces is, like, a sketch of that piece of clothing, right? So you kind of figure out the measurements, the material, things like that. One thing I realized was that you can take a bunch of product photos, and with good prompting into ChatGPT, so, like, let's say I find a garment I really like on like a random store, you can feed that into ChatGPT, and it will now produce, like, an accurate sketch template of that piece of clothing with the measurements and with the materials that you can then use to build your design on. So, like, that's, like, a nice insight I found. And I'm building an app which is just basically taking away all of that prompting, and it's a ChatGPT wrapper, but it's going to now provide designers with the opportunity to see a garment they like online and then produce a tech pack sketch template. So I actually think a lot of the opportunity is super niche use cases like that, where there's actually probably only 1,000, 2,000 users I can probably get from within my audience. But what it does, it protects me from, you know, ChatGPT or one of these models just building something that's going to wipe out that use case, because there's still, like, a very niche and very specific workflow that's happening there. And so I'm very interested in, like, so, like, I do stuff in fashion, and I'm looking at very specific vertical workflows that are very niche to a certain number of people, and just seeing if I can hack together a few things that, you know, let's get 1,000 people paying $100 a month for this, right? And I think that's where the interest lies on my side.
I think just to add to it, me and Chris, before we were on the call here, we were talking about what's like the moat of the future, because everything is evolving so fast, and services and businesses can just be wiped out very quickly by the technology that's developing. And I think, and me and Ollie, we've discussed this, is that the moat is just a lean team of people that can do certain things, like operations, someone that's in dev, product, creator, and then the entrepreneurial sort of business lead. Like, and if you have those 4 people, you win, because you have you have distribution through the creator, you have insights through the creator. A creator takes those insights, feeds those back into the team to figure out whether or not something can be built easily, get an MVP. Could it also be scaled and commercialized? That can then be done very quickly. That can go back out to the audience for feedback. Do you like this? Yes, we do. Okay, let's develop this. These audience will buy it, and done. Because it's not about what people can build at the moment. It's who can distribute it the fastest. Because just like with anything, people can now build an app. And if someone goes on Twitter and go, oh yeah, guys, I just built this app, and I go, do you know what? That's actually pretty cool. You'll get 100 people that can build it better next week because they're just more experienced, but they don't have the distribution. Distribution still holds the power, because you could get distribution through ads, but you also need capital through ads. And I guess these devs don't have that to some degree. And so I think it's a balance of the right team members to be able to be agile and lean, and have somebody that also the operations person, I would say, is an expert in agentic. It is an expert in figuring out how to build AI workflows that basically can mean that you don't need to have 20 people doing something. And then essentially you're building SaaS, you're building web apps, and it's just that. And then the business person is figuring out the commercialization, getting further investment, managing all of that. And I think I think that's the future of business.
On that, Ben, as well, I'd also say is like, you can build these really interesting, not just kind of what we've come to learn about apps and products. You can create brand new experiences that never existed before. I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a new web development business called Perspective. We have Plus System 7, which builds AI automations. And those guys together got in a room and they've cobbled together a workflow that can customize Webflow websites to personalize them to you using data enrichment. So you can land on a website and I'll say, hey, Ben, and just like use your name. That's like a really, I just went, even if that like in its first form is a bit naff, I go, that's fucking conceptually cool as fuck. And we've talked a lot about AI, and generative AI is a great personalizer, but throwing layers of code and like intuitively now we can enrich data to the point where we know who you are, maybe what you like, some little kind of elements that are identifiable to you, but maybe no one else. You go, fuck, that's really cool. So I said to the guys, I was like, I'm going to try and pump the shit out of this. We need to go like build this, put a skin on it.
You've just hit on another one, Ollie. You're like ducks in a row today, because like if you look up a company called Mutiny, they've been doing that for 10 years. But the thing is that it's very expensive enterprise level only software. And so AI makes that personalized landing page name experience far cheaper, far more useful, far more affordable. But these things were a SaaS product. You know, like many of the things you've mentioned today, like they aren't agentic things, which is really crazy. They are SaaS products, but because AI can do it so much cheaper and faster and make it totally dynamic. Like I saw one ex-user create an MVP, like of a website customized template thing where, and you'll like this, Catty, it was a fashion shop. It was like they sold like jackets, and they specialized in different jackets, and it would like get the IP address of the person that was like coming into the e-commerce Shopify site, and then suggest, oh, it's raining locally, here's a rain jacket. And then the whole website dynamically changed with the name, and the jacket was suggested. And this is like a bolt-on Shopify e-commerce like AI personalization tool. And these sorts of experiences, I do wonder though, we're all going to see different movies in the future. You know, like I'm going to go, oh, can I see this new Star Wars in the style of Wes Anderson, please? And you know, that's going to be my prompts. We're never going to have things to talk about because we're all going to
it's the great divide. It's the hyper personalization where you have a unique experience based on your preferences. What we lose in that is the things that bond us. We all want to watch the same thing at the same time, the same live sport experience, the same film. And actually that's where great work will live. There's just going to be this very clear divide between personalization and great art.
But being
That, like-
positive, you know, so we started out this whole thing about this is the most exciting time for a creative to be alive. Well, you know, the Matrix and the bullet time. Do you guys know this? You know, the bullet time style studio thing where they, Ben will know, right? That was a multi-million-dollar camera thing. And there's a new thing that Ben and I have been testing called Higgsfield, and it can do this. Look, watch this. That was less than 50 cents to generate.
What was it? Was that a person doing that?
That was a bullet time action camera roll, which is like, you know, in order to do that, you need to have a whole line of cameras taking.
It's a difficult production.
It's a multi-million-dollar thing that now AI can make for cents. You know, so that creatives that are in this time, like, you needed to be the guy that ran the Matrix in order to have this budget to make that thing. You know, now your average Joe with a smartphone with 50 cents can literally get that same thing. So do with that what you will, but a creative alive today. I wish I had that.
Can you go make us a dope trailer with like Chris running through walls?
I can. They just given me a month for free, Chris, as well.
Yeah,
on Instagram. I'm going to rinse that.
So pumped on that one. I think it's the thing.
They've just launched an update. Yes, they just did. See their update yesterday.
No, I haven't. No,
they've done an update yesterday of like effects. They've got some explosion effects. Man. It looks pretty cool.
Is it going to be like Pika Labs?
It's kind of like that, but like having used the tool and known that it's actually quite good. I know their marketing isn't like 100% bullshit. It's actually like kind of like it is doable. My sort of just random thought that I had is I just think art's going to die as kids grow up and don't give a shit. Do you think 10 to 20-year-olds, or let's just say kids with a phone that are like now do you think they're going, what about the artists? Absolutely not. Like, and they're the ones that are going to essentially dictate how business and everything operates as we move through the next 20, 30, 40 years. And I don't think they're going to be too bothered whether something's been made with AI or not. Anything like
I can tell you one thing.
They're going to be taking their ADHD pills. They're going to be, non-verbal.
I mean, they're going to be sort of fucked in some other degree. Yeah, of course, because everyone's going to have ADHD because they've been doom scrolling since they're 5 years old. Like, I don't know what the ramifications of that are on society, but like, I'm sure there are smart kids building all sorts of things and using AI in different ways that we can't even imagine. I would love to just sort of be on a fly on a wall to see how they're just using. Kids are super creative. Like there's no like preconceptions on how to use stuff. Like and so
I'd be opening up a music label, music videos. Yeah. That's where I'd be if I was their age. Like because it's super doable now.
We can do it super cool. Catman, I'm conscious you've got about 10 minutes before you have to bounce, and we'll wrap up. Give us some closing thoughts, ideas. Anything you find interesting.
I think based on all that, I think like the super interesting thread here is this like idea of hyper personalization, where I think about it a lot with software, and I think one of the interesting things that are going to unravel over the next few years is the kind of the bloat that we all currently spend a lot of money. So you think about businesses spending a huge amount of money on monthly software subscriptions, where there's about 60-70% of the features you don't touch. So that's just like a general problem, right? There's this huge bloat where people's monthly bills are probably 10, 20K just in software, but actually you're only using 2K, 3K of the actual engineering work that's being done by these companies. And so what's probably going to happen is the big companies are going to hire teams that are just going to build hyper-specific personalized software for that company. Because, I might need this social scheduling tool. I might just need Instagram, right? I don't need to pay for the fact that this tool enables LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. And so I think there's a massive threat to the SaaS industry because of that. And like we've all talked about, I think the winners are going to be those that figure out how to build very vertical, very hyper-specific things. I think it's fine. Sorry, you go on, Ben.
I was going to say, to add to that, I think companies themselves will employ people that can just build these SaaS solutions themselves from open source tech. So we don't need to go to another company to build the scheduler. We just hire someone that builds the scheduler for ourselves. And that also is a big threat to big SaaS companies. When I think people are going to do that. Why would they not?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think my final comment is I found it really interesting this week, the Minecraft movie release. And I think when you talk about all this idea that does art still matter to young people? This idea that consuming the same media, enjoying that kind of feeling of fandom and that moment. I don't know if you saw like the videos of kids in the theaters like watching the Minecraft movie. It's this like crazy viewing experience. People are going crazy, throwing popcorn. It's like the microcosm of TikTok in a cinema. And that just reminds me that like, man, people don't change. They still want that like that human experience, that human connection, that there's memories, and you can't really replace that with super hyper personalized agentic built media.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I wondered,
It's
was that? Go on.
It's it's like it's the idea. I think of it in a marketing context, and you think about technology, but it's the Byron Sharp methodology of physical availability, mental availability. There's like all the
Yep.
principles of how we behave do not change. The context does, how we do it, all the other factors might evolve, but the principles don't. And I actually think when there's so many shiny new toys to pay attention to and consider, we also all have to be anchored to like foundational. I'll give you one illustration to put this point. This is the stupidest product I've seen this week, and I'm going to name and shame them. I got a comment on one of my LinkedIn posts, and this is a new level of stupidity, by the way. And it was a comment bot that underscored commented by Commentify. And like, I looked at that, and there are endless reasons why this is the most stupid product in the world, but I'm just going to give you quite a few right now. Number one, AI should be invisible. So the whole point of a comment bot is flawed if I know it's a bot. Number two, comments aren't that important. It's just flawed logic. Number three, like when people are thinking of products, they're going, oh, growth lever, I'll have Commentify all over people's feeds. I go, A, everyone thinks you're a twat. B, it's flawed. And C, I look at that. That's looking from your selfish perspective, not the customer's. Don't build things for you, build stuff for your customers. So for every reason, that is the shittest, stupidest, most ridiculous product I've seen.
You haven't
all
even
week.
mentioned the main one. It's banned on LinkedIn. As soon as you
What
get
is it?
found using it, it's gone. So, like, viability wise, like, why build it
Just for every reason? And like, I don't want to, whoever's
So
built
dumb.
this, I feel a little bad for like shitting on that. But in fact, I'm doing them a service. There's kindness in truth. Kill this business. You're never going to make money from it. And if you do, you're a scammer and it's shit.
I'll
I
make
will
it for a
end that
platform
there.
that allows that.
I've
Like,
never seen you get that fired up before.
Yeah, I know. That was a real fire up, wasn't it? But
It's
That was-
Friday, chaps.
I got
the crazy
one final
thing.
thing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go on.
Chris. No, I say like one final thing I've learned, like with all these tools, like everything I've been playing with. I remember there was a day where I was using the ChatGPT image model. I was doing some graphics. Then I was like vibe coding here. Then I was like writing copy with Claude. I was like, oh man, I can do it like spinning plates. And I realized like I've still got the same mental load as I had 6 months ago. Like I haven't increased my brain capacity. And I was sat there like, man, what am I doing? Like I'm gonna fry
Yeah.
myself. And so like the interesting thing is, how do we deal with that? Like we have more capabilities now, but actually it's more about like what can I actually focus on, because
Bandwidth.
we all now have the capability that Elon Musk does. We can now run like 6 companies at once, but I'm now burning out probably faster because I'm just like,
Same.
the mental load is the same.
I think it's like you see this new shiny thing that's now it's really now easy to do this really hard thing, and it's like, oh, like I need to learn that, or like you like, and you're just being distracted now with every new thing that comes out, because everyone's like, oh, you could learn this in, I built this app by learning this tool in a month, and now it's doing 10K a month, and now we're just being distracted by all of these cool innovations, and which is taking us away from just, I guess, just staying on the straight and narrow, whatever we're currently doing.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it, chaps. And just one last thought. Has anyone seen Jay today? He's been ace. Is he like on this call?
Is he in the background?
I don't
think I hit him. I don't think I hit him. So
he's been ghosting me for like 2 days. The guy's gone rock star.
It's Friday, mate. He's out on the piss, mate.
What's he doing? Stupid Liverpool fan.
He made your best ever video, Ben said. So I think he deserves a day off.
Well, you know what? I run a tough ship. I will be honest. We have high standards over here. Catman, awesome seeing you again, dude. Thank you for joining, and you'll have to get involved a little more often. Any
Thanks
new
so much,
listeners,
guys.
go. We drop these on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Memes and machines.
Yep.
And we'll